Hello and welcome to my creative corner. Today I'll be diving into the fun and very eco-friendly project that is making envelopes with paper scraps. So here's my box full of scraps here. Um, as you can see, I have a lot. Uh, but with this project, not only you will learn a new craft, but you also will be contributing with environmental protection for repurposing materials, which is a big deal for me. Well, to start with, I'm gonna start classifying the paper by the quality. So this is some of the neutral paper. I have my wallpaper here, and then I'm gonna put them in small groups. Anything that has a pattern or colors, I'm gonna put that next to my fill calendar, French calendar. And I'm putting them there because they are cute and I might use later to decorate my envelopes. And I really like this project because this is a very fascinating comparison. Let's say maybe it's a little bit arrogant to compare this with the Japanese art of kintsugi, but let's imagine for a second that is something similar. I really like romanticizing this kind of projects. I'm gonna put this away. So anyway, let's start by the beginning, right? So what I'm gonna say first is that you're gonna need different pieces of paper like these ones, and then you're gonna need scissors and glue, and in my case I'm gonna use also a knife to cut some of the pieces of paper. You might want to use an envelope template if you have one, but if you don't, there's no problem. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So basically, when you're putting two pieces together, try to think about making a rectangle, or as close as a rectangle you can. In this case, I'm putting two different pieces with different weight together. So the piece in the top has a very light weight versus the piece in the bottom that is kind of heavier weight. And the way I'm gonna glue this together is by putting a little bit of liquid glue in the edges. And so you saw that I put a little bit of glue in the lightweight paper, but then I'm putting also some glue in the heavier weight paper. This is not super thick, but it's thick enough to notice the difference and to consider that the weights are different, definitely. And the importance of this is that when you're putting these two pieces together, the best thing to do is use a bone, like I'm doing now, just because it's very important to make sure that the pieces are glued together. I'm gonna put this other piece here as well, but with this different weight of paper, when you put them together, try to put the lightweight paper in the top of the envelope rather than in the bottom. And the reason for that is that it's basically gravity, right? So when you put the lightweight paper in the bottom, it might be that the weight paper is gonna fall faster, and also the content is not gonna feel quite as good. So my recommendation is that always put the heavier paper in the bottom, and I'm gonna explain you a little bit more about it once we are ready to make the envelope. So for now, all what you need to know in this part is that you try to make this connection as similar as a rectangle or a square as you can. We're gonna keep doing these, but as you can see, the materials that you're gonna need for this are very straightforward. You're gonna need different kinds of paper, then you're gonna need scissors, glue of course, and my favorite tool is the bone file to make these connections and to make sure that the glue connected the pieces together. And now you will need, of course, this paper, but if you don't have the same scraps as I have, of course we all have different things. Don't worry about it. You can use whatever you really have available. because each piece of paper has its own unique character, which actually adds charm to the envelopes. So you really don't have to worry much about what are the kinds of paper that you have, but a lot more in how you decide to make them together. So the other thing, as I mentioned, if you don't have a template, that's totally fine. Try to make it, connect the paper in kind of in a process to try to make them all in the shape as closest as possible as in a square or a rectangle. As you can see here, I'm again using 2 pieces of paper. The cream paper that I took from a notebook probably would be enough to create an envelope, but because we're using this technique now, it's very fun to add another piece of paper to add charm to the project. And then I use again my bone file just to add these beautiful and crisp edges, and the finish with that bone is really very professional. And then I'm gonna cut the rest of the paper here. And then let me choose these other pieces of paper. And this is something that is very fun because in the first three times we use only 2 pieces of paper, 2 different kinds of paper. This one is very interesting because we're gonna have to use more. The smaller the pieces, the more paper we need to use. And I'm gonna add this other one, but again, probably if there were only these 2 pieces, it's gonna be too small to make an envelope. So you keep adding. Keep adding the paper as you consider, and this is not quite a rectangle yet, so we need to add a small little piece like this one to create a rectangle. And now you can kind of visualize that this is gonna work out. You can also decide to make kind of very unbalanced kind of envelopes, but in this case we're going to stick with a single kind of envelope, just because it's easy to follow a pattern when you're mass making, which is what I'm doing today. So I'm adding these pieces of paper, but I'm going to be making the same kind of envelope every single time. If you want to experiment in different kinds of envelopes, that is totally fine and super fun. I'm sure that you're going to have a very beautiful result as well. So when you put these pieces together, make sure that the glue is sticking to 2 sides of the paper, like you're seeing now in this envelope. Especially when you're using different kinds of paper and more than 1 piece of paper, it's very important that you put glue, and you make sure that you put glue in every single of the corners and the edges, because if you miss one of the pieces, it's gonna look so bad in the final result. And I'm gonna use my bone file again to just make sure that these pieces are sticking together as they should. I love having this result and how professional it looks like after we fix it. And then we are gonna have to do, this is gonna have to be the last one because I need to go for dinner very soon, and I really enjoyed making this. But this one is gonna be kind of crazy. Oh well, not crazy, but different. So we have here wrapping paper that has a very interesting shape. It's different than the others. It's not a straight line, it's different. So I really enjoy this, and I think it's very fun, and it's the closest to this Japanese technique. And I find it interesting because it kind of highlights the beauty of reusing materials, the beauty of finding and repairing and putting together, rather than just grabbing a new one. And so in doing these things, I find a lot of beauty into fixing, repairing, correcting, adding, putting together. And basically all of this is creation. So anyway, I'm trying to make this a rectangle here, And it looks like there's a small piece here. I don't need too much paper. And here's another tip that I was gonna give you too. Try not to overlap too many of the pieces. Like, what I mean is, if you have a big piece that is gonna overlap to the other piece for a lot, like a big piece of the other kind of paper, it's gonna make it heavier, and you don't want that. You want to have all the piece more or less in the same weight, just because it makes it easier to manage and put content inside. You don't want your envelope to break, right? So that's the whole idea of these, and I'm telling you all these tips just because it happened to me in the past. I did have problems with envelopes. I made these mistakes, and I don't want you to go through the same problems with that I went through. It's very fun, and it's looking really pretty. One of the things that I love from using my bone file is that sometimes when it's not pasting and it's not looking right, I can identify exactly where the glue is missing, right? It's very fun to do it. And so as you can see, so far we will be using 4 pieces of paper in this one. That is very interesting. And then you're putting these pieces together. I mean, in some cases, the pieces I'm cutting from are pieces long enough to make an envelope, and in some other cases it's not. Like the gift wrapping paper, you definitely couldn't make an envelope just by using that piece. So adding together is kind of make it strong enough, beautiful enough to shine again, to make it again. It's just like we humans get together with others, learn from others, evolve, grab our pieces together and make ourselves a new being every single day. Every single day we are different. We evolve and we get better. So every time I have the chance to recycle, every time I have the chance to do something with a piece that seemed to be just ready for the trash, I just like the idea of having the chance to use it again. So anyway, this piece looks really good, but thinking about it, I feel like there needs a little bit more, for more like a rectangle. Now again, think about your pieces like a rectangle. In which parts would you need to add additional paper? In my case, it's in this area, because then I can cut this part like this, and so it's gonna be a perfect, not a perfect, but close enough a rectangle to make an envelope, right? So it's gonna be very fun to do that. So the other thing that I wanted to discuss with you, since we're going through all of these, is the importance of repair and reuse. You might have heard this kintsugi Japanese technique. It's more than a technique. I think it's art of repairing broken pottery with gold. It doesn't hide imperfections. It's like, again, it's like humanity. We don't hide imperfections. What we do is highlight them, transform the flaws into beautiful futures, into new beginnings, into doing something different and still beautiful. For instance, this wrapping paper that we're using here in this envelope, you can see that definitely this is a scrapped paper. You would not confuse this by thinking that this is a printed envelope. This is not something that we just created by design at the beginning. This is actually something that has been created by recycling, and that's the beauty of this, right? So the craftsmanship, the time that takes you to create this. We have now these things together, and the next step is making the rectangles. And now you're gonna see how I take my mat to kind of put some of the corners or the edges in a parallel side of the lines in my mat, so I can use my knife and make either a square or a rectangle. And then once I have this, all what I have to do is folding. And again, I'm gonna put the heavy weight by the bottom of the envelope and the light weight by the top of the envelope. So what I do is just by folding on the back. If you are a newbie into making crafts, this is gonna be very fun to watch, because when I was a newbie, all the time I wanted to make envelopes because I kind of started by having pen pals. I did have, I think like 3 pen pals when I started, at the very beginning when I started crafting, and making envelopes for them was my obsession. And this one is one of my favorite kinds of envelope, just because it's very easy to make. And now that you are seeing how the envelope is coming up together, how 2 pieces are becoming one, you can see the beauty of how 2 colors are matching up, like 2 things that didn't even know each other before. They do not belong to the same part, they are not similar in the color, texture, weight, and yet they can work so beautifully together. Most people will discard this kind of rolled paper, but you can make this envelope using those, and it's so beautiful. It's an unexpected material that you can use. That you can probably use fabric as well if you have it available. I usually don't use much fabric into my envelope, but you can. And so you can actually use different mediums and different kinds of things, and then glue them together, right? Put them together and see how they work out. Just like people, you find your own group, and in some groups you don't even feel like you belong to them. They are so different, and yet when you get together you can create amazing things. And one of the things that I learned from life now that I'm in my 40s is that denying the opportunity to learn from other people just because you don't align with them totally might be a mistake. You can create this amazing stuff with them just by trying to understand them, just by trying to listen to them, right? And so in these crafts, every single time I come to the craft room and I starting to cut these pieces of paper and putting things together, I reflect about these things. What is happening? What is happening with the paper? What is happening with society? What is happening with me? What are the similarities? I ask myself a lot of questions. Sometimes I don't even have the answers for myself. It's very funny. But I really like doing these things in the sense that having a reflection of ourselves, even if it's for 20 minutes, is really relaxing. A lot of people highlight the benefits of journaling because you write down your experiences, your thoughts, your plans for the future. But I value as much these moments when I am all by myself. I don't have a record of my thoughts, and all what I have is my voice, my conversation with myself, my thoughts, right? And the ideas that I'm thinking about, the plans that I have for the future. Sometimes I just, besides crafting, I go for walks and I sit next to a lake or next to next to the road or in a park or whatever, while my kid is playing, and then I just keep reflecting about things, and that's for me very valuable. And so using these and thinking, hey, these envelopes look a lot like this Japanese kintsugi art, just get me thinking, I need to make more of those, lots of those. I'm planning to use this to send freebies to my next orders. Even if I don't make any, I can send these to my pen pals in the future. Thinking about many beautiful things that you can do with these. instead of just having these scraps and not knowing what to do with them, and because some of these pieces are too small or because some of these pieces don't seem to match together. But here we go, and then we have this beautiful technique to practice and to see how the areas of the paper get together, right? It's very funny because in both the kintsugi art and our envolupe making, we see that imperfections or purpose materials contribute to the overall beauty and value of the final product. It's kind of a celebration of transformation and creativity. And here, for example, it's different than the papers that we have been working in the past, because the wallpaper cannot be pasted with the regular wet glue, not even with the rolling glue. It has to be pasted with plastic tape, which I don't like much, but I have it, right? So I have to use it in certain circumstances. So even the things that you feel like you regularly will not use, at some points in life become interesting. So when somebody says, I don't want to learn about this, because they just don't care, I feel like they might be not that curious about the creation and importance in the future, right? So this other envelope is very fun too, because we have this very light paper. So the dictionary paper is very light paper versus the other dotted paper. Another technique to do this is maybe in the middle, like in the connection between the two pieces of paper, you make a fold and then you kind of align with the other side of the paper. And instead of going with a knife all the way, like I have been doing in the last envelopes, you can just align those two dots and then put the envelope together. Of course, we need to cut the excess because we can do the envelope with that excess. Well, I guess we can, but I prefer not to, because I like the final look as well. Anyway, I put this envelope together, and now we're gonna fold up. And again, we're doing the same envelope for all of these. And so I'm putting this in fast camera because otherwise we're gonna be here forever. And this is another envelope finished. And so this is the other one that was very interesting because we have several pieces of paper here pasted together. I'm gonna go with a knife on this one just because there is no way to compare like the dots when, like we do when there are only two pieces of paper. This one needs a lot more attention, and so I'm giving it the attention that it deserves. And so it's very fun to do these envelopes, make these envelopes. And I'm gonna have to adjust this knife and put these things away. Now, I do make handmade paper. It's one of my favorite things to do as well, so I have a bin specific for doing making handmade paper. And it's something that I do every time the bin is full. And if I cannot make it in that moment, I save those for the next year to make them as well. And in the result of this one, we really don't know what is going to happen, right? Because I mean, the pieces of paper are everywhere. We have two choices then. We can control the result by putting the main piece in the front part, the piece that we want to show, or we can allow the envelope to surprise us. And so I decided to let it surprise me, so I didn't check in the front side what was going to be the final result. And now I turn it around, and here is the final result. I like it. It's very fun. It's very interesting to look at. In this one though, I'm gonna cut the excess, but I also want to control what the result is gonna be. And that's again two different approaches in life. None of them are wrong. You just need to choose when you want to use each one. and I'm getting the knife. But in my case, for example, in this envelope, I'm invested into using that beautiful gift wrapping paper in the front of the envelope, just because it took me some time to use it in the past, and so I really wanted to be used and to be seen by whoever receives this envelope. And I would probably send these as the wrapping for some of the freebies from my orders, and so it's very exciting to think about it. I'm definitely gonna have to sacrifice this part of the brown paper, because it's a very small piece of paper that probably is not gonna be visible in the cover of the envelope, but that's totally fine. And again, just like life, when we have bigger goals, we have to sacrifice small little things, and that's life, right? Just like that. Crafting is sometimes what you want. You give references, you have priorities, and in my case, the brown paper, although it's really beautiful, that I wanted to show, it's just not gonna happen, and that's totally fine. I'm okay with that. And so anyway, I just thought that the comparison was very interesting, and I think about all this stuff while I'm crafting. I sure hope that I'm not the only one who does this, and so I hope that you're enjoying this process as well. I do have a lot of fun using different techniques. Like for example, in this one, instead of using the scissors, because I already closed my envelope, I'm using my knife, and that's still okay. Sometimes I forget to do one step before the other one. Sometimes it ends up destroying the project, and some other times it's totally fixable, not a big deal, it's totally controllable. It's very rare that when I'm crafting I get frustrated. Very rare. It happens though, but very occasionally. Anyway, and then I love using this bone just because the crisp edges are perfect. So here are some tips for making the envelopes. My first tip is ensure that your paper is smooth and free of wrinkles, just because when you're gluing it's going to be hard to control that. The second one, use your bone folder. And the third one, of course, test your glue. That's going to be very helpful. So here are some of the envelopes. This is the end result of the envelopes that we made. And they are very fun and very interesting to see. And I hope that you really enjoyed this project. I certainly did. And I really appreciate that you joined me today. I hope that you enjoyed this project again. Remember that every small effort to reduce waste makes a big impact. And like the kintsugi, we can find beauty in what we might otherwise discard. So I really enjoy this. So if you try this, please share your creations, and please don't forget to subscribe if you like it. Thank you.